say very quickly before we start that you guys probably know I did about 12 or 15 stops in Canada with George Peterson in the last year, and the worst thing I was called was a fascist. But tonight, I got called a Nazi.
We've had that going on for a couple days now.
Yeah, so I feel like I've arrived. So it's
I'd actually like to start with you, Dave. Free speech is obviously the cornerstone of Western civilization, and every one of us on this stage has taken risks in defense of it. You are a free speech advocate, and that is an understatement. What made you decide as an American to come to Canada and take this risk of coming in here to stand up for free speech right here?
Well, you know, I think most of you know my story, which is why a lot of you were groaning when he said the Young Turks. And well done. Yeah, I was a lefty. I was a progressive. I know what that is, what that sense of collectivism is. I know what that knee-jerk response to believe that any one of you people in this room, because you take some position, not even an array of positions, but because you take one or two mild positions, perhaps on taxes or something like that, that's outside of progressive groupthink, that they decide to label all of us racist, homophobes, bigots, Nazis, the rest of it. And I started seeing that argument, not only repeatedly, but exclusively. And the more that I saw it, I thought, this can't be right. This is too easy. Even if we're right, whatever that means, so even if when I was on the left, we were right about some policy issues, it can't possibly be that all of our opponents, all of our intellectual sparring partners are these evil forces of nature or something like that. And as I woke up to that, suddenly, and this was the shocking part, and I think this is sort of what put me on the map, is that I couldn't believe that I found all of these people on the right, I mean, basically you guys, who were absolutely open to agreeing to disagree, to hash out issues, to not be any of the things that I was told that you were. And all I've done really is been very open about my adventure. And I think it's somehow, I mean, look, when Max and I sat down on my show, you know, so here's this politician in Canada talking about free speech, people want me to talk to him, let's do it. And then I felt something happen here. So it's an honor to be here with you guys, and there is something that is truly worldwide happening right now. There is something going across the West. If you believe in if you believe in freedom, if you believe in the sovereignty of the individual, that we should have individual rights, that is the cornerstone of Western society, of your society here in Canada, in my society at home in the United States, and all over Western Europe and the rest of it. We are now officially in the fight to defend that. And that is not a racist principle, that is not a bigoted principle, or any other of those phobes, or any of those things. It is actually the most important principle. So I'm thrilled to be on stage with you guys. And I thank you for having me.
Yes, fighting for freedom, I think it's the most important fight that we must do, and we are doing that together. And I always have the question about why creating the People's Party. When I did that, I thought that I'll be alone, and but I'll fight for what I believe. And actually, after a month, we had more than 28,000 founding members, and now it's a growing movement, more than a political party. And for me as a politician, fighting for freedom is fighting for having real debates. And we don't have that in Canada right now, and at the university also. There's too many taboo subjects. And when we are starting a discussion, sometimes the other part, the left, they don't want to jump in that discussion with real arguments. And that's what I don't like in politics right now. And that's why, our candidates and everybody that are with us, they're free to speak and to debate. And I'm so disappointed that during that election, the Conservative Party of Canada said to their candidates, don't do any debates. Don't do any debates. But that's the basic of our civilization, to debates. We think we have the right ideas because they're based on freedom and personal responsibility. And we are ready to debate, and I want to thank our candidates and everybody across the country that are helping us to build this party and fight for our principle. But you can count on us, on me, to bring the subjects that are important, like speaking about immigration, speaking about free speech, speaking against Bill C-16 and all these crazy leftist proposals. But it's only the beginning for us. And you know that in my campus also.
Well, you cleared something. Well, first of all, everybody's probably like, who the heck is the guy on the side? I said, hey, aren't you Maxime Bernier? And I said, who's the guy you're with? Yeah, I'm running as a candidate for the People's Party in Cambridge, but I didn't realize, is this true that the Conservatives are saying to their candidates, don't go to the debates?
Absolutely. When I was running for the Conservative Party of Canada in 2015, the last general election, that was everything must be controlled, and it must be in line with the subject of the day or the news of the day. And they didn't want any candidates to do any debates. And I received some phone calls. I was running for the Conservative in 2015. Some phone calls from some candidates in Quebec, and they were asking me advice. Maxime, do you think I must be there at that debate in my riding? And I will always say, yes, you want to be their representative. You must be there, you must debate. But actually, that's a position from the Conservative Party of Canada.
See, that fascinates me because I just thought they were afraid to debate me.
You're not special, David.
I really thought that I was that threatening. But that is, the problem with that is, like, that is the height of disrespect for your constituents. Right?
But there's something else at play here. It's that when you've been able to control the dialogue by labeling all of your opponents these horrible things, your ideas actually get flat and lazy. They don't get worked out. You don't have the intellectual sparring to be able to figure out what you really think and be able to stand across from someone that you disagree with and make your point clearly. And I think what happened, and the reason so much of this is connected through YouTube and podcasts, is that as over the last 10 years, you guys were able to find other ways to get information, and in a really fast way with a huge wide array of people, suddenly you heard all of these things from people that you couldn't hear about. And on the other side, they were going, well, it's worked. It's worked to call everybody a racist for this long, so why even debate them? And I think that's why, with the CBC and some of the things you guys are dealing with up here, you have trouble just getting talked about. But as Eric Weinstein, who I'm sure many of you guys know, mentioned on my show, one of the fake news is not just that they're selling something that's dishonest. Fake news is also that they won't cover certain things. So be aware, be aware. Look how many people are here.
According to the media, you do not exist. You're all superheroes. You're all invisible people. You do not exist. You're Jedis. You're all Jedi.
And if I may add on that, we did a rally in Vancouver last week. We had 500 people over there. We had the CBC and the media. No coverage after that, but they were there. I did a rally after that. It was last week also, the day after in Calgary. 500 people over there, like the crowd tonight. The media were there, nothing on the news. So I think it was fake news.
It is absolutely a type of fake news by ignoring you. And then, that also is the irony. The more they say, oh, you're racist and bigots, and the more they ignore you, it becomes this mysterious thing. And then what I think will happen over the course of tonight, for any of you that are here, that maybe you're on the fence about what really is freedom, what is liberty, what does caring about the individual mean, well, you're going to walk out of here and go, wow, I didn't hear anything that was racist. I didn't even hear anything that was radical. All I heard was something that challenges just the mainstream factory settings that we're all sold on. And that's what
We live in a time where we have access to information, where we can get all sources of information from all different sides, but people seem to shut their eyes and they don't want to look. We have people outside that as we were coming in here, we were pushed, we were threatened, They were calling us fascists, Nazis, everything else, and even though we were pointing out that we were accompanied by a Muslim immigrant, they didn't even want to look. So how do we counter that eye shutting and advise these people here who are trying to do it for the first time? You've had a lot of experience, we've all had a lot of experience having these conversations. How do they have thick skin and how do they break through?
First of all, you must have the courage of your conviction.
Yes.
And it is too bad that that happened. But go back to the history. In Canada, we created out west the Reform Party 25 years ago. Out west, but 90% of our program is coming from the Blue Book that was a program of the Reform Party. But remember, Preston Manning was the leader of the Reform Party, and in the beginning, they were saying to Preston, he's a racist, and that happened to him. But everybody knows that Preston Manning is not a racist, was not a racist, but because he brought new ideas, and he was fighting for limited government, more freedom, and speaking about issues that were important at that time. So that happened to us right now. We just have to go on and to do the fight. And the fact that we are here tonight speaking about what we believe, I think that will give some courage to our candidates and people out there who share the same ideas to be out there and to speak about it. The more we speak about an idea is because we know that we have the best ideas. I think so. And the better it will be. You know, I have a lot of questions by journalists, and they are asking sometimes good questions. But they are asking me, a good question is, what is the biggest challenges that you have as a leader of a new party? And the biggest one is to be known, is to be out there, because half of the population don't know that we exist. And the biggest challenge that we have is with the mainstream media. And now we use the social media, and the more we'll be out there, the more I think people will be able to listen of what we are saying. And I can tell you that it's a long journey. We started that a year ago, but it's only the beginning also. I think that you and us and everybody here know that we have the right ideas for the right values, Western civilization values and ideas. So let's be out there. I don't know what is your experience in campus.
Well, I would also say that we have to stop giving these words so much power. And that's a challenge, because when you get called all of these awful things, it hurts you. You can, sort of, it makes you feel like it's going to hurt some of your friendships or relationships or things like that.
It's Rosh Hashanah, right?
It is.
You're Jewish.
Yeah.
And you get
And
called a
I'm here
Nazi.
with you crazy people. You see? You see what's going on there? Yeah. Well,
The disconnect between reality and what these people out there are actually seeing is just beyond belief. Sorry.
well, it's the audacity of it. I mean, I wanted to be here regardless, and I'll go home and be with family tomorrow, but as Salim mentioned, it's really celebrating the creation of the universe. This is creating. What we're doing, having these conversations, is creating an ability to have more freedom in the future. But just quickly on the words, stop giving them power. So when someone says that Max is racist, what would a racist want? Would a racist want a policy that would treat everyone as individuals and not by the color of their skin? Would a racist want low taxes? I mean, we could go through the litany of absurd things that none of his policies are racist. Or is this man a homophobe? You want to hold hands for a little bit? Stop giving these words power. They are actually meaningless, and they're the last gasps of people that don't have much left. Those people don't have ideas.
Raises a great point. And the question was, how do you get a thick skin? Well, if ever you've been walking around in the summer, you know how you get a thick skin on your feet. So you just keep getting the blisters. You just keep walking, you keep hitting the rocks. And you hit the rocks and see you get those calluses. And for each one of you here tonight, I'm speaking as a candidate, we have to have thick skins, but even coming through that door, you are developing a thick skin. A thick skin doesn't just happen, but you have to be intentional about it. It's like a muscle. You pick up something that's a bit heavy, and then you pick up something heavier, and you pick up something heavier. We need to take action. We need to stand up. We need to speak out when we need to speak out. We need to stand up when we need to stand up. You need to come in through the door, through the people out there who are trying to stop you, and you need to come in here and say, no, I stand for freedom.
Yeah.
Remember too, that if it gets to you, and if you're taking it really seriously, walk away, but make a commitment to come back. And the other thing that I try to live by is always give better than you get. So when they're doing that to you, give them a little bit better, and you can win people over. I've done it, I've seen it. People awaken, they have their own journeys, and that's what you're trying to engender, for sure. So, getting into something more specific. Both of our countries have an immigration issue, and have a border issue, and have issues. And it seems you can't even have a discussion about these issues without being called a racist or a xenophobe or any other title like that. So how do we solve real problems if we can't even have discussions about things that are actually a problem?
First of all, I think we must start the discussion, and that's what we did at the PPC. But yes, it can be tough someday, and but I'm always saying that, I want to appeal to your intelligence, not to your emotion. So when people are saying bad things about us, they don't want to have any discussion on the core of the policy. And so the more we speak about that, the better it is. And I just want to let you know that on immigration, when we were just entering this building, people were saying that we were anti-immigration. We're not. And we're not. We're proud. As you know, this country has been built by Francophone, Anglophone, First Nation, Inuits, and immigrants from all over the world. We just want fewer immigrants, and we want more of them economic immigrants. And that's why we have an immigration policy, to fulfill our economic needs. But the other politicians, they're afraid. But we're not radical speaking about immigration in Canada. If you look in other countries, you have the discussion in the US, you have the discussion in Europe, but 49% of our population want us to have that discussion. So let's have it, and they don't have any arguments that will be solid against our proposal. We're not racist, we're not for mass immigration, we're not anti-immigration. We just want to have fewer of them that will come and share our values, and being sure that we have an interview with each one of them like we did in the past. We have a point system in our country that was better than right now. And before in the past, if you speak French in Canada or English, you had more points. And we know that it's easier for an immigrant to integrate our society, be part of our society if they speak one of the two official languages. But now this point system is not the same that it was in the past, so we need to review that and having a debate. But the good news is, I'll be on the stage to have that debate.
Max and I have discussed immigration in the past. We've had time to be together, and it's really difficult to say all the reasons why our policy is the right policy. I mean, when Max came to Cambridge and we had a chance to discuss our immigration policy, we had to actually hold that event in the living room of a friend in his house, because people just like those who were outside shut down our other event. They threatened the business owner until they were afraid to hold the event. And that's in Canada. Remember, this isn't the communist Soviet Union, this is Canada. Indeed. So, but you know, we've talked about it, and something that I want to look at our policies and say, not only are they the best rationally, they are the best for compassion. And let me just show you this. Listen, we've got great research out there. There's the Harvard economist, George Borges. He's been studying immigration for 30 years. He says, if you want to raise the wages of the working poor, you've got to lower immigration. Because if you have an oversupply of newcomers into jobs, it keeps those wages too low. There's no incentive to business. By lowering immigration, we're actually helping the poor. And we've got to make that known, because this is why our policies make sense. Right? For too long, we have ceded the moral ground to the left. And they say, well, we want to have more government spending because it's going to do more. And it doesn't. It doesn't. We've got policies that not only help the economy, but help the poor. Not only will lower immigration help raise wages, it'll also help make housing more affordable. It will. We didn't want this to be a policy discussion because it's super boring, so I'm gonna turn it over to Dave to talk about immigration in the U.S. because it's crazy there.
Good luck.
But the last thing, lower immigration is also better for new immigrants because it allows them to integrate into society, and it makes the people who are already here more welcoming. And the work of Eric Kaufman at the University of London has shown that. And if we want to be the best people we can be to the immigrants coming to our country, lower is better. But what's it like in the U.S., Dave?
Well, I won't be presumptuous enough to come to Canada and tell you guys how to run immigration policy in your country. That being said, if Bernie Sanders becomes president, I'm moving here.
You test.
I will brush up on my French. Look, I mean, of course I agree with the basic premises of what you guys have laid out here. Every country, there's a reason that countries have borders. Countries have borders so that they can decide what is right within those borders, right? America and Canada have, overlapping, say, interests and values on, probably 99% of the issues, really, the people of Canada and America. Yet at the same time, we are not one country. There is a border that separates us, and you guys are allowed to decide what you want to do, what is right for you, and we're allowed to do what is right for us. And sometimes those might have some competing interests, and then we have to negotiate that. So without getting too far down like a policy part of this, I would say not only does every country have to decide, it's their duty. It's almost the most important duty. And that's why the immigration conversation is so awful, because you can quite literally, and I'm sure you guys have seen these videos on Twitter, you can see videos where basically Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and the rest of the Democratic politicians, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, 10 years ago were saying virtually the same thing that Donald Trump is saying now. Now, he's orange and his hair is crazy and he's got a strange affect when he's speaking and all that. But that just shows you that what's happening here, unfortunately, is becoming a team sport and not something based in honest, sound policy. And it seems to me that Max is the guy trying to reset this for you guys. And again, that's why I'm thrilled to be here.
The lack of skilled workers, it's always a question that they will throw at you. The solution is not only immigration. The first solution is for the entrepreneurs in this country to be able to reinvest or be more productive, and we want them to be able to invest because we have a policy to lower taxes and flat tax and all that. But the second, it's to be able to raise, like you just said, the salaries. We don't want here Canada to be cheap labor. If you raise your salaries, you'll be able to have more people. And the third one was the immigration. If it's always the first one, like you said, people will still have a low salary and they won't. So now we have a coherent platform for small business, for immigration, and also to be sure that Canadians will have the right salary that they expect. So that's why we need to look at our immigration and being sure that it will fulfill our economic needs, but not opening the borders like Justin Trudeau is doing right now.
And don't you guys find it curious that the same people who will tell you that our nations are racist and patriarchal and homophobic and Islamophobic and all those words are the same people that want to welcome everybody here to share in the horror? Isn't that a
So when you're in politics, obviously, and also when you're in the alternative media, it seems clear that the media almost has its own platform and policies, and that if you deviate from that, you're going to be demonized. And a recent example is Greta Thunberg is touring around Canada in favor of carbon taxes, and we're mentioning the economy, and I don't think that's going to be very good for the economy. I'm going to bring this up because you're here. There was the Covington kids. And they were demonized in the media for wearing "Make America Great Again" hats. They were targeted. They were demeaned. They were destroyed. I think they were doxxed. When it comes to Greta Thunberg, you can't criticize her ideas, or you're labeled as attacking a 16-year-old. But we really need to have a discussion around climate change and carbon taxes and these things. So how do we go about this when we're fighting almost all of the established powers?
We are fighting, yes, you're right, and also the media. Bias of the media on climate change. I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, they were saying, the fires on our planet right now, they're the worst ever, what happened in Brazil. But the BBC did a big piece about that, and they look at the satellite photos, and we had more fires on our planet 15 years ago than this year. But you don't see that on the mainstream media. So what we want to do, we just want to have a conversation, but now it's supposed to be climate change emergency, and for them, I understand their strategy. If it's an emergency, you don't have time to think or to do more research. They want us to act right now, and they don't want us to debate. But for us, there's no climate change emergency, and we want to be sure to have a debate about that before changing our way of life, and that's too important. And I think that the more crisis they believe in, the better it is for us. The common sense people understand that the climate is always changing, and it will change also in the future. But we believe that the main reason for that, it is not human activities on this planet. That can be a part of that, but not the main one. We cannot have the debate, but we are starting that debate, and we're not alone. In all our policies, we have a majority of Canadians on our side, or a huge minority. So we want to be a voice for these people. And
Well, I find this to be a really fascinating one because it's becoming the next one sort of like race that people are very nervous to talk about, right? It really is becoming that type of thing. What I've found is that people on the right, when I go to events like this, it's not necessarily that you're rejecting science or you don't want to listen to 97% of the climate scientists or any of the things that they'll tell you. I mean, they're the ones telling you you're rejecting science, and then if you tell them how many genders there are, they freak out. Not to be a dick, but what they're sort of doing with that is they're saying, bow to us now and bow forever. The earth is ending in 12 years, and of course it's ridiculous and absurd. And what I have found though is that when I've talked to you guys, and I've had people on my show where we talk about nuclear energy or other ways that we could blend a public and private way to deal with environmental issues, people are totally open to that, and I suspect you guys probably are too. You don't want something jammed down your throat and then forced to then expand government. And I think we're all sort of in the same place on that. Quickly though, on the first part of your question, which was about Greta Thunberg and then the Covington kids and the way the double standard was, right? So if it's a child of the left, you got to lay off them. If it's a child on the right, you can say, I'm going to punch them in the face on Twitter, and you get 1,000 retweets.
By profession, I'm a social scientist. I'm at Laurier University, and being a politician is not my ideal gig, but it's, you do your duty. And honestly, I want the facts. And coming into this, I really didn't have a firm position either way on climate change, global warming. But what I did have a firm position on was I've seen again and again in academia where there is an established doctrine, a doctrine that you cannot compromise and you cannot question, to the point where they will suppress the facts on the other side. So we've moved away from the scientific model that said we're going to have competing ideas so that it will be self-correcting. Because you've got these ideas against these ideas, and somewhere the truth comes to the top. But now, you look at the behavior of these climate scientists, and I'm thinking in particular, there's a guy at the University of East Anglia, and his name is Phil Jones. And Phil Jones is the lead researcher there, and he's also on the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, the IPCC, from the UN. And there's clear evidence. The UK government has said to him, listen, you are in breach. There have been over 104 Freedom of Information requests for the data where you are claiming global warming, and you've only answered about 10. Now, when you have an academic who refuses to let another academic check their data, that's a red flag. Another thing, there was a WikiLeaks for this fella, and in some of these emails, he says specifically that he's bragging that he's been able to get onto the editorial boards of certain journals, and he's able to suppress or deny the publications of other scientists who have gone against his global warming findings. That's not science anymore. That's ideology. My point is, if I wasn't already skeptical, I now really have a lot of reason to be skeptical. I really do. But when I say to my colleagues at the university, listen, I'm skeptical, you would have thought that I pooped on their carpet. I mean, it's gone that far. And there were heresies in the past, and there are heresies today, and one of them is this idea that you would even question global warming.
Well, when you have some scientists speaking about consensus, it's a word for politician. Not doing research, but they're doing research, but it's always not based 100% on facts. They're doing politics, these people. So for me, I don't like the word consensus. I prefer conviction. I prefer facts and reason, and that's the most important for us. And we'll see. I believe in the near future, that's a religion right now, climate change. But I believe in a couple of years from now, maybe a couple of months from now, people will, I don't want to insult anybody, but wake up a little bit.
If you use a plastic straw, you should be shot.
Yeah,
all right, so...
Well, it's nothing new in science. Like, science always develops these consensus, and then the people who break them with new evidence are always besmirched. There's a long history of this in archaeology and in geology. One of the consequences, of course, of consolidating around consensus and then having a society and a culture that doesn't foster debate, having a media culture, a political culture that doesn't allow debate, is you end up with politicians that, instead of trying to tell the truth about subjects, get into vote-buying schemes, whether it's through corporate welfare or through foreign aid or through boutique tax credits. Did you know the most important thing in Canada is a $2,000 camping tax credit? Did you know Yeah, paddling a canoe, right, if we're still buying this. So,
Oh, I thought you said that you get a free canoe.
Oh,
Now I'm really moving here.
but I think one of the things you're doing, Max, is trying to push back against the whole vote buying and corporate welfare and
Yes, and it's going well, you know. It's going well because I like competition. You know, I'm a free market guy. I like competition, but nobody wants to compete on our turf, the freedom and less government and no vote buying. And doing that, you need to explain your policies a little bit more. And people appreciate that. Actually, in the news today, all the promises from all the other political parties, I think the cost of all that was $100 billion. And we still have a couple of days before the election, so before the day of the election. So they try to buy votes. But for us, our commitment is to cut. We want to balance the budget as soon as possible. And after that, when we'll have surplus, yes, we'll give you back those money. Said that he's not a real politician, and our candidates are not real politicians because they're new in politics, and that's great. That's great because you don't want to be a politician. Being a traditional politician, people, don't believe in politicians anymore. That's why we have 30% of the population that didn't vote in Canada at the last federal election. And so we have to be different, and that's what I like, I'm telling what I believe in based on principle. If you like it, come with us. If not, that you have the choice. You have the choice with the other parties. So we won't play that game by vote. And I think people appreciate that. It's very, it can be risky as a politician, but I think it's a beautiful risk doing politics differently. The one thing
he said that there's us and then you have a choice with the other parties. Reality suggests that there's us and then there's this really one other party. There's the liberal con, because I can't tell the difference between them. Right, there really is one party that is liberal.
David, I want to target you for a second because you left the left, and I'm assuming your husband left with you in some way. I was watching Joe Rogan Experience with Ben Shapiro. I can't remember what it was spelled, but he apparently couldn't come to your wedding for religious reasons. And in Canada, we have this bill called C-16, which can ruin your life for misgendering somebody. It's a travesty, if you ask me. Where do you think laws like that lead and governance like that lead? And do you think they're necessary?
Well, no, they're evil. That's the easy answer, right? Any law that would compel speech or punish you for speech, I would view as evil. Now, look, in the United States, we have the First Amendment where we have extra protections around speech that I think actually makes most of the world jealous of us. And it's funny because if you listen to most of the lefties in the U.S., they'll tell you how everybody hates the U.S., everybody's so disappointed in us and all this stuff, and it's like, nobody's leaving, everyone still wants to come. Lena Dunham, she's still here, Deborah Messing, she doesn't go anywhere, I bought her a ticket, But I should mention Jordan, because obviously one of the things that put Jordan Peterson on the map is fighting this bill. And, if you watch the way the media operated, it was suddenly that this Canadian professor was this leader of the alt-right who's a transphobe, and he hates gay people and all of these things. And I did 100 some odd shows in about 24 countries with him in the course of a year. And not only did I never hear him say one bigoted word, one racist word, one transphobic word, every show there were trans people in the crowd, there were gay people in the crowd, black people, Muslim people, it doesn't matter. All he was saying is that the government shouldn't be able to tell you what to say. We have got to protect that. That is what we must protect more than anything else. I mean, that really is it's funny because I don't bring up my sexuality. I don't think it's relevant in any way other than, and I know the nature of why you brought it up, because that's the game that they play. But I don't want any extra credits, and more than anything else, I don't want any extra rights. I want the exact same rights as everyone else. Guess what? Identity, my immutable characteristics, I would never want to use them as a cudgel over anyone else. And sadly, identity politics has tricked a huge swath of people all over the world that somehow the things that they're born with that they can't change have far more importance than the ideas they come up with, and the thoughts that they have, their actions. That is the reverse of Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. And that's how perverse this thing is, and that's why we have to turn it around.
I just want to add that for us, our policy is easy and simple. We're going to repeal that. That's it.
Being a People's Party candidate, and I think probably being a People's Party supporter feels a lot like that. Did you ever watch that Rudolph cartoon, that Rudolph animated thing? They had the island of misfit toys. So sometimes I feel like we are the island of misfit toys. And that's okay. But the reason I say that is, we in the People's Party have this ability to attract a really diverse bunch of people because we don't care what your sexual orientation is. We don't care what your color is, your ethnicity, your religion. We don't care. We do care that you want the freedoms that we enjoy here. And this really is what unifies the nation, and it's going to unify the party. But what's refreshing about it is it also makes us forget our petty differences. Like when we were at that conference in Gatineau, I'm with people who I normally wouldn't have been hanging out with. Right? Seriously, it's the island of misfit toys. But suddenly we all have this common cause that we want freedom. And that is so important that it can overcome our differences. And so this is something that's not just a political party, it's a movement. And as you say, this is what will rebuild Canada.
Identity politics and vote buying, we don't play that game. And I like to tell the anecdote, and I think you must know that one. I'll be very short. When I was running to be the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, I'd been invited in Toronto with a Muslim organization, and they had a lot of conservative members, and they told me and our team, Maxime, you're the only conservative leadership candidate that didn't come to see us, because we have a lot of our members that are conservative and we have a list of questions, and if you want to come. So I went there and they asked all the questions. And at the end the lady said, the last one is the most important question. If you want to take time before you answer, it's okay. If you want to go back to Ottawa and think about it and write back the answer, it's okay. I look at her. What's the question? My God. And she said, our members will read the last one to decide for which candidates they will vote. Okay. So I asked the question, and I'll see. And she asked the question. You don't know that? And then no. Yes, no. So she asked the question. She said, what will you do for the Muslim community? And I look at her. That's the question. She said, yes. I look at her, I said, nothing. I will do nothing for the Jewish community, I will do nothing for the Christian community. And I look at her, I said, but I will do everything for you as a Canadian.
So speaking of identity politics, we have to talk about this. In Canada, we have this thing called the Multiculturalism Act, which more or less, well, it deploys. It's not that we're against other people celebrating their culture, but it deploys public money towards balkanizing the country essentially, and it doesn't promote a core Canadian identity. And it leads to things like Justin Trudeau saying that Canada does not have a core national identity. So you guys disagree with that? Okay, we actually have that. You've talked about repealing it, and I think that would go along with ending identity politics.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We don't need a legislation to tell us who we are as Canadians. So yes, Canada is a diverse country. We're proud of that. What we don't like, and we don't want the federal government to spend money to celebrate every diverse celebration. Like I like to give that example, the Chinese year, the Chinese people, Canadian from Chinese origin, if they want to celebrate their Chinese year, that's perfect. Go, and they're free to do it. But the government must not spend money to celebrate that. I think the government must spend money to celebrate. And we'll be able to save some money, and we'll use that to promote what unites us as a country, our history, our culture, our values as Canadians, and that's what Canadians, I believe, want.
This is where you really have to watch the media closely, because the low resolution, to quote Jordan Peterson, version of this would be they hear you say, oh, I don't want to give you anything as Muslims, or you don't want to fund the Chinese food or something. And the low resolution version of that is they'll spin it in a way that it sounds like you're saying something against Muslim people, or you're saying something against Chinese people, or Jewish people, or whatever it is, when that is obviously 100% the reverse of what you just said, and we all know that. So you really have to see the way the media plays with this, and then be ready, to answer an earlier question, be ready then to challenge the people who are coming after you for supporting this guy, or for having any of these beliefs. Be ready to fight them on their ground and go, no, he doesn't want special treatment. He wants you, guys standing right in front of me, he wants you to be treated the exact same way as everybody else. And that's what's really good.
Maybe some of you were there when Max made the announcement about the immigration policy. And then the media, they covered it, and the Toronto Star covered it, and the CBC covered it. And one of the things that they really took Max to task for this, and he wants a values test. They just drove them crazy. He wants a values test for immigrants. And I was there, and Max said, I'm going to tell you what the values are. I want equality between men and women. I want to make sure, that whatever your sexual orientation, you can live your life. That people respect the rule of law, and that they democracy. And all these things he said were codified in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They're the things that we all want and desire. So my question for the media, who were so scathing about this, which one of these rights wouldn't you want someone to have? I mean, we really have to flip the script on them and say, what are you saying? You don't want newcomers to Canada to respect women like they respect men? You don't want that? Because please tell me which one of these we should get rid of, because it sounds dangerous to me.
Your country is your home, and I think you should treat it like your home. I believe that people can say anything they want outside of my home, but I don't invite anyone into my home at all times to say whatever they want. I don't invite people in my home that would be actual homophobes or real racists or anything like that. I'm not trying to put them in jail outside of my home, but I have a fence in front of my house. I have a lock on my door. Believe it or not, it's pretty crazy. And there's a reason we have those things. And I think we should start thinking of our countries as our home. And we should be as welcoming as we can be, but we shouldn't just have a door that's open for everybody at all times, regardless of anything, just so that we kind of feel better about it.
The left is fond of, as we're kind of talking about here, inverting the meaning of words so that equality in their lexicon now means, assessing you based on your intersectionality point score and dividing you. So it's a flip script. And I think we have to wrap this up soon. But I wanted to ask you guys, what individual experience was the craziest that you've had with the sorts that we had outside today? If you could think of one thing you've run into in terms of personal experience, the craziest thing you've experienced.
I mean, I can start, I immediately go, well, I can tell you about yesterday, right?
Well, I just got called a Nazi on the first night of Rosh Hashanah. That's
Yesterday, so I woke up yesterday, and as all good politicians do, I'm learning what it is to be a good politician. So I went on Google and I saw, has anybody in the media mentioned me today? And I always look for Max first, and then I look for myself. So yesterday, CBC had a story, and it was saying that it was the local CBC. This little boy, 5-year-old boy, had written a letter to local politicians, because he was concerned about the death of the polar bears. Fair enough. And the really cute kid, really just curly hair, beautiful. And of course, it said, Dave Haskell did not respond. And so, I'm frantic. I've got 5 kids. I mean, I love kids. I don't want to disappoint a child. I'm frantic. I'm thinking, how could I have overlooked this? How could I have overlooked it? I'm searching my email box. I call up the secretary of the Riding Association. Did you get a letter and not hand it on to you? It's something from a kid about polar bears? Nothing. Turns out we didn't get a letter at all. And then, I slowed down for a bit and I thought, wait a minute. CDC didn't even check with me. Did you ever receive this letter? This whole thing was fake news. They did know, the other candidates, they answered the letter. I quickly set off an email to the CDC. Are you kidding me? You didn't even contact me. I received no letter. And now I'm getting emails. Why don't you like kids? So that was just yesterday. I mean, I could go on, but that's a typical day as a People's Party candidate. I'll let you know.
I feel like I should give you a big finish here, so I'll just quickly, I'll do one that I think probably most of you saw about 3 months ago. Front page, Sunday, New York Times, a picture of about 40 YouTubers, and the headline is, if some of you remember it exactly, something like the rise of the alt-right on YouTube, something to that effect. And of course, my picture was in there, and Jordan Peterson and Shapiro and Milton Friedman. I mean, a real, nothing, like a dead libertarian economist to lead you to Pepe. And the whole article was, the article truly was a work of fiction, because what they did was the author, by the way, his name is Kevin Roos, which is the greatest name for a New York Times author ever. If you didn't get that, think about it for a second. Roos. The premise was that this kid, he found a kid, like a 20-something-year-old kid who was kind of on the left, but then started watching YouTube videos, became kind of on the right, and then at the end, he actually ends up a lefty, because he finds lefty YouTube and that saves him. So the whole title of I swear on my life, So the whole title of the article was wrong, because the idea was that he became a righty, an evil alt-right or whatever it is. Anyway, I invite the guy on my show, and of course he doesn't respond to any of that stuff. But my dad, who has subscribed to the New York Times for 45 years, longer than I'm alive, had to go to the coffee shop that day, that Sunday, and have a woman that lives in the neighborhood come up to him with the paper, with my picture, and say, I didn't know that David is a leader of the alt-right. And my dad said, well, neither did I. But that's what we're up against. It's not just the false cries, it's the way the media plays into it. And look, it's in a weird way, you can see the people out there and it seems kind of scary, or it seems like it's sort of taking over everything. That's just a bunch of misguided young people that eventually, as the world progresses and we get these ideas out there, we can fix some of them. But this is a holistic problem between the ideas, fighting identity politics, fighting the media, fighting the political establishment, all these things, and we all have to figure out what role to play. And I would say more than anything else, for you guys, it's probably just being a little bit braver. But you're already here, so you're already doing it. So I don't mean that in any judgmental way, truly. I mean, it's just about being a little bit braver. We live in the freest societies in the history of the world right now, really. For all the badness that you think is out there, Canada is still an exceptionally free country, for now.
Frank, I'll do my politician. I won't answer your question. Because I want to finish on a positive note. And so, you know, a lot of bad things can happen, and as you know, if you look at the news, you'll see. But the best thing for us and for me was the creation of the People's Party of Canada. Some days it can be tough. You need to have, tight skin and being ready. But, you know, it's my best time in politics. I like what I'm doing. We have great people, great candidates, and we are fighting for the real values and for what we believe. And the core of our principle is we at the People's Party, we believe in you, we believe in people, we believe that you can do what you want to do in life. You don't need the government every time, every day of your life. We want a limited government, more freedom, and fighting for that. For me, it's great because I'm myself, and there's no more political correctness. And we are doing politics differently based on principles, and we don't try to please everybody. So it's my best time in politics, and I'm really the 14th of September. Just remember that date, a year ago. That was the date that we created the People's Party. In the beginning, and we'll be there, and we'll see what will happen in a couple of weeks from now. But having discussion like that, and I think Canadians will have these kind of discussion in their house, around the kitchen table, and the more they will speak about what they believe in for a better country and a freer country, the more they will have support. So that's all.
Obviously, I want to thank all of you again for coming out and braving the outside and getting here and reminding you, as Max has just said, we're called the People's Party because we're made of people. You are the People's Party, and you'll all be the People's Party. So I appreciate everything that you have done tonight as well. And with that, I would like to invite the media up onto the stage for a media scrum so that you can ask us, our friends in the media, to come up and ask us all the questions that they would want, and I wish you all adieu. Thanks to Dave Rubin.
The election is just a few weeks away, so make sure you keep up with all our coverage, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video.